Before clocks ruled our lives, there was a village where the wind whispered myths.
Intro. Before clocks ruled our lives, there was a village where the wind whispered myths and ordinary people lived extraordinary lessons. This is the story of Terpsichore, where gods linger quietly, stories weave through daily life, and every chapter hides a deeper truth. Listen closely and stay until the end, because this story isn't just about ancient Greece, it's about what it truly means to be human. Chapter 1. Dawn in Ancient Greece. The first light of morning brushed the soft hills of a quiet Greek village nestled beside the sparkling Aegean Sea. Gentle waves kissed the shore, and fishermen pushed their small wooden boats into the shimmering waters, nets in hand, hoping for the day's catch. Smoke curled lazily from the chimneys of stone houses, carrying the scent of freshly baked bread and herbs. Children laughed as they ran barefoot through narrow cobblestone streets, their voices mingling with the songs of distant birds. Here in this serene village, life moved slowly, in rhythm with the sun and the sea. Villagers woke with gratitude, not alarmed by clocks or deadlines, but stirred by the soft golden rays spilling over olive groves and vineyards. In every corner, small moments of happiness played out. The baker greeting his neighbors, a mother guiding her child to fetch water from the fountain, the blacksmith's hammer singing on molten iron. Even the gods seemed to linger here. Some claimed the morning winds carried whispers from Athena herself, praising the villagers' simple joys, while others noticed tiny flickers of Apollo's sunlight dancing across the waves. These subtle signs reminded everyone that life was sacred, fragile, and beautiful. It was in these ordinary moments that the extraordinary revealed itself. Though life was simple, it was not without challenges. Villagers worried about the olive harvest, the fish in the nets, or the occasional storm threatening to undo their labor. Yet they faced each day with resilience and an unspoken faith in the universe. Dawn was a gift, each breath and heartbeat a gentle miracle. And so, as the sun rose higher, the village of Terpsichore, named after the muse of dance, began its day. Here, every sound, every scent, every small action mattered. Every day held the promise of discovery, love, laughter, and the lessons hidden in life's quiet corners. In these early hours, one could feel the pulse of ancient Greece, a heartbeat that connected past, present, and the whispers of the divine.
Chapter 2. The Weaver's Tale. In a small cottage at the edge of the village lived a young weaver named Callista. Her fingers danced across loom and thread as if guided by unseen hands. The fabric she created carried patterns not only of vines and flowers, but also of stories. The stories of gods, heroes, and mortals who had walked the land long before her. Callista's grandmother had taught her to see the threads as more than mere fiber. Each color held emotion, each knot a lesson, each design a myth waiting to awaken. She would sit by the window, sunlight spilling over her loom, and imagine the nymphs of the forest, the whispering winds of Zeus, or the mischievous grin of Hermes as he delivered messages between gods and mortals. The village admired Callista's work, but they admired her mind even more, for she could tell stories through her weaving, stories that brought laughter, reflection, and sometimes tears. A simple piece of cloth could remind a mother of the courage of Athena, or a fisherman of the perseverance of Odysseus. Her loom was not just a tool, but a bridge between the mundane and the divine. One afternoon, as the salty breeze swept through her window, Callista paused and looked at the sea. She imagined the gods watching over her village, not with harsh judgment, but with gentle curiosity. Perhaps they smiled at her small hands weaving tales of greatness and folly, love and loss, joy and sorrow. Each thread she pulled was a meditation on life itself, a reflection of dreams, fears, and hopes. In weaving, Callista found her peace, and in her stories, the villagers discovered theirs. She understood that myths were not just tales for children, they were mirrors of the soul, guiding hearts through the labyrinth of life with lessons hidden in beauty, humor, and sorrow. Chapter 4: Nightfall and the Stars. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and violet, the village slowed. Smoke curled from chimneys, lamps flickered in homes, and the sounds of the day gave way to the soft whispers of night. Villagers gathered around fires, sharing stories passed down from their ancestors, tales of gods, heroes, and mortals whose lives intertwined with destiny. Above, stars began to pierce the darkening sky, each one a glittering reminder of the cosmos. Children lay on soft blankets, gazing upward, imagining the adventures of Orion, the love of Cassiopeia, or the wrath of the vengeful gods. The night air was thick with calm, a lullaby sung by the ocean and the wind through olive trees. Even in slumber, the villagers' hearts were guided by the myths they cherished. They dreamed of courage and kindness, of cleverness and folly, of love lost and love regained. The stories shaped their sleep, nurturing empathy, reflection, and hope. Nightfall was a gentle teacher. In its quiet, humans remembered the lessons of the day, gratitude, compassion, and the magic hidden in small acts of kindness. The gods, too, seemed to smile, observing mortals who embraced life's mysteries even as they rested. Chapter 5: Love and Loss. In the village, love was both tender and tragic. A young couple, Ilara and Nikos, walked along the cliffs, hand in hand, hearts entwined like the vines along the hills. Their laughter was light, their eyes full of dreams, yet the shadow of mortality always lingered nearby. Their story mirrored ancient tales, the longing of Orpheus for Eurydice, the devotion of Pygmalion to his creation, and the trials of many heroes whose lives were never simple. Love brought joy, but loss taught the deepest lessons. When Nikos faced illness, Ilara stayed by his side, tending him with unwavering devotion, while neighbors shared quiet support. Through love and loss, the villagers learned the essence of life, to cherish fleeting moments, to embrace both sorrow and joy, and to understand that every bond, like the threads in Callista's loom, was sacred, fragile, and beautiful. As night deepened, the village held a collective breath. Love and loss intertwined like the stars above, casting gentle shadows over hearts open to life's lessons. It was in these stories, woven into daily existence, that Greeks of Terpsichore found wisdom, comfort, and a connection to the timeless pulse of humanity. Chapter 6: The Oracle's Whisper. At the edge of the village, hidden among cypress trees, stood the old temple of Apollo. Its worn marble steps and cracked columns seemed ordinary to most villagers, yet they carried the echoes of ancient prophecy. The oracle, a wise woman named Thaleia, lived within, speaking to those who sought guidance from the gods. Many came to hear her whispers, whether for decisions of the heart, the harvest, or the journeys beyond the mountains. She spoke softly, her voice like the wind through olive branches, never forcing answers, but guiding hearts to recognize their own truths. Children often peered through the temple doors, imagining the magic of her words, the light of prophecy dancing across her eyes. One evening, Dorian, the young man from the market, visited Thaleia. He sought guidance about a journey he had been dreaming of, a trip across the sea, beyond familiar lands.
The oracle did not give a simple answer. Instead, she recounted a tale of Perseus, who faced monsters and shadows, yet discovered courage within. "True knowledge," she whispered, "comes not from fortune or fame, but from listening to the quiet voice of your heart." Dorian left, carrying her words like a lantern in the dark. Through the oracle, the villagers learned patience, trust, and introspection. Even as life unfolded in unpredictability, each whispered lesson became a seed, planting wisdom for generations. The god's presence was subtle, yet undeniable, guiding the village toward understanding and grace. Chapter 7. The Fisherman's Tale. On the coast, the rhythmic splash of waves against boats told stories of struggle and triumph. Nikos, a seasoned fisherman, prepared his nets before dawn. The sea was both friend and foe, offering sustenance yet demanding respect. He remembered tales of Poseidon, god of the waters, who ruled with both benevolence and wrath. Fishermen often spoke to him, leaving small offerings in hopes of calm seas and bountiful catches. Nikos did this, not out of fear, but from understanding the balance of nature and respect for life's forces. One morning, after storms had kept him ashore, Nikos found a strange, glimmering shell washed upon the rocks. He held it in his palm, marveling at its beauty, and for a moment imagined it contained the wisdom of the sea itself. That night, he shared the story with the villagers, and laughter, awe, and reflection filled the small square. The fisherman's tale reminded everyone that life, like the sea, was unpredictable. Joys and hardships came like tides, and true resilience was born of patience, humility, and appreciation for the present. Chapter 8. Festival of the Muses. Once a year, the villagers celebrated the Festival of the Muses. Music, poetry, and dance filled the streets, with olive branches and garlands adorning every home. Children recited stories, elders hummed familiar tunes, and strangers were welcomed as part of the celebration. Callista wove special tapestries for the festival, depicting scenes of gods teaching mortals, heroes performing great deeds, and ordinary villagers living extraordinary moments. Each thread was a reflection of life's duality, joy and sorrow, triumph and failure. During the festival, a young poet named Leon performed a story about the love between Psyche and Eros. The audience laughed at the playful moments and sighed at the bittersweet parts. Through myth, the villagers connected to their emotions, remembering that love, loss, courage, and humor were universal threads that bound humanity together. By night, lanterns glowed softly along the streets, and the festival's magic lingered like a gentle melody. The festival reminded all that beauty could be found in stories, in art, and in the shared experience of life. Chapter 11. The Olive Grove of Memories. Sunlight filtered softly through the branches of the ancient olive grove at the edge of Terpsichore. The air was thick with the scent of earth and ripening fruit, a fragrance that spoke of seasons passing and memories woven into time. Each gnarled tree seemed to carry its own story, whispered through leaves to anyone patient enough to listen. Ilara often wandered through the grove in silence, picking olives that would later be pressed into oil for the villagers. She touched each tree with reverence, as though greeting an old friend, feeling the subtle hum of history beneath her fingers. Here, in these quiet moments, she imagined the presence of Athena, the goddess of wisdom, smiling upon the earth and its caretakers. She recalled tales her grandmother had told her, stories of mortals and gods, of courage found in unlikely places, of love that transcended time. Among these tales, one resonated deeply: the story of Baucis and Philemon, an elderly couple who showed kindness to strangers and were rewarded with immortality. To Ilara, the lesson was clear: acts of compassion, no matter how small, echoed across generations. As the day wore on, villagers came to the grove, some to gather olives, others to simply sit under the shade and reflect. Dorian arrived carrying a small clay jar of water for the elderly couple, a gesture of respect and kindness. Together, they marveled at the grove's quiet beauty, realizing that life's richness was not in wealth or fame, but in shared moments, generosity, and the love that bound the village together. The grove seemed alive, whispering softly in the breeze, "Remember, cherish, act with heart." And so, in the serenity of the olive trees, lessons of the past intertwined with the present, guiding hearts gently toward the choices that would shape the future. Chapter 12. The Storyteller's Lantern. As dusk fell, the villagers gathered around a large fire in the center of Terpsichore. Its flames danced and flickered, reflecting in the eyes of children and elders alike. Tonight, the storyteller Leon held a lantern, its golden glow illuminating his expressive face as he began to speak. Leon's stories were never just tales, they were mirrors, reflecting the human heart in all its complexity. He spoke of Persephone and Demeter, not merely as gods of myth, but as symbols of cycles, patience, and enduring love. His voice rose and fell like the tide, carrying the audience through sorrow, hope, laughter, and wonder. A group of children clutched each other's hands as Leon described Orpheus descending into the underworld, his music softening the hearts of Hades and Persephone. Adults leaned closer, reflecting on choices they had made, mistakes they had endured, and joys they had cherished. The stories wove together the ordinary and the divine, showing that every life, no matter how humble, carried its own epic significance. When the tale ended, silence lingered like a warm embrace. Then, slowly, the villagers applauded, not merely for the entertainment, but for the wisdom carried within each word. Leon's lantern, though small in size, had illuminated vast worlds of emotion, teaching that even the faintest light could guide weary hearts through darkness.
Chapter 13. A Night by the Shore. The village night was alive with gentle sounds, the lapping of waves, the distant hoot of an owl, and the rustling of olive leaves. Ilara and Nikos walked along the shore, their bare feet pressing into cool sand, their hands intertwined. The moon, a silver guardian in the sky, cast a delicate glow over the water, revealing glimmers of tiny fish darting beneath the surface. They spoke quietly of their hopes, fears, and the mysteries of life. Nikos shared tales of storms he had braved at sea, of monstrous waves that seemed almost sentient. Ilara recounted dreams of gods and nymphs, of visions that whispered of courage and love. Each story, each reflection deepened their bond, as if the moon itself had drawn them closer. A distant lighthouse flashed intermittently, reminding them that guidance often came in subtle forms, not always in grand gestures. They realized that life, much like the sea, was unpredictable, filled with calm stretches and tempestuous moments. Yet love and understanding could serve as a steady anchor, holding them fast amidst the chaos. By the time they returned to the village, the night had grown quiet, almost sacred. Stars shimmered faintly, and a gentle wind carried the salt of the sea into the streets. They understood that every step along the shore, every word shared, was part of a timeless rhythm, a connection between humans and the eternal cycles of nature and myth. Chapter 14. Lessons of the Hearth. Winter approached, and the villagers spent more time around hearth fires, sharing warmth, stories, and laughter. Callista's loom sat quietly in her corner, threads dormant for the season, yet her mind wove vivid tales in every thought. Families gathered, exchanging news, memories, and advice. Grandparents spoke of hard winters past, teaching resilience. Parents shared tales of the gods' favor or wrath, reminding children of respect and humility. Laughter often punctuated the stories, mischief in the marketplace, playful gods interfering with mortal plans, or the comedic blunders of young villagers. Through these gatherings, the villagers learned that life's lessons were rarely obvious. Wisdom often hid in the mundane, the way one shared bread, soothed a crying child, or offered a helping hand to a neighbor. The hearth became a teacher, warmth a guide, and conversation a path to understanding. Even gods, distant as they seemed, were present in these quiet acts of love and courage. Athena's wisdom, Hermes' mischief, and Apollo's light manifested subtly in daily choices, reminding all that morality, kindness, and humility were intertwined with joy and laughter. Chapter 15. The Journey Beyond the Hills. Spring returned, painting the village with lush green fields and vibrant blooms. Dorian, inspired by the oracle's whispers, prepared to journey beyond the hills, across the mountains, and toward distant lands. The villagers gathered to bid him farewell, offering gifts, blessings, and words of encouragement. The journey symbolized more than exploration. It was a step into self-discovery. With each hill he climbed, Dorian reflected on the stories of Perseus, Orpheus, and countless heroes whose courage shaped worlds. The path was not without challenge. Narrow passes, unpredictable weather, and moments of fear tested him. Yet every step also brought revelation. The beauty of sunrise over peaks, the song of hidden birds, the generosity of strangers he met along the way. He carried the village's lessons in his heart: kindness, patience, resilience, and love, knowing that true wisdom was not in reaching a destination, but in embracing the journey. When he finally paused atop a high ridge, looking down at the valleys below, he realized that life's vastness mirrored the myths he had grown up with, intricate, beautiful, and full of hidden truths waiting to be discovered. Chapter 16. The Hidden Spring. Nestled between two hills far from the village lay a hidden spring, said to be touched by the nymphs themselves. Its waters glimmered like liquid silver, and the moss-covered stones surrounding it whispered of ancient secrets. Few villagers had ever discovered its location, and those who did treated it with reverence, drinking cautiously, feeling as though the water carried blessings beyond the ordinary. Callista often visited the spring during quiet mornings. She filled small clay vessels with its cool water, using it to dye her threads. Every color seemed to gain an ethereal vibrancy, as if the water carried the essence of life itself. Sitting beside the spring, she reflected on the countless stories she had woven, of gods' interventions, mortals' bravery, and the subtle lessons hidden in everyday deeds. One day, Dorian joined her, returning briefly from his travels. They talked about distant lands, the generosity of strangers, the mischief of gods, and the resilience of humans. They laughed at tales of foolish heroes, sighed at stories of tragic losses, and shared quiet moments of understanding. The hidden spring became a place of reflection for them. It was a reminder that beauty often existed in secret corners of the world, and that patience and reverence could uncover wisdom invisible to those in haste. In its gentle waters, the villagers glimpsed eternity, lessons flowing silently, nourishing hearts and guiding actions. Chapter 17. The Weaver's Challenge. As spring deepened, Callista faced an unusual challenge.
A traveling noble had requested a grand tapestry depicting the life of the gods, from the creation of the cosmos to the heroic deeds of mortals. The task was immense, demanding patience, skill, and imagination. She worked tirelessly, often late into the night, her fingers moving deftly over the threads. As the tapestry grew, she wove not only the myths themselves, but the emotions they inspired: courage, love, fear, laughter, and grief. Every knot became a reflection of human experience, bridging the gap between ordinary villagers and the divine tales they cherished. One evening, exhausted and frustrated, she almost set the work aside. Yet as she gazed at the slowly emerging scene of Orpheus playing his lyre to charm the underworld, she felt a surge of inspiration. She realized that her challenge mirrored life itself. Perseverance, creativity, and courage were needed to transform obstacles into beauty. By the time she completed the tapestry, it was more than a commission. It was a living story, a gift of wisdom for all who gazed at it. The villagers marveled, recognizing themselves in the figures of heroes, gods, and everyday mortals alike.
Chapter 18. The Night of the Lanterns. Summer arrived with warmth and gentle breezes, and the villagers celebrated the Night of the Lanterns. Hundreds of small lanterns were lit, floating along the river and hanging from olive trees. Their glow reflected in the water, creating a dreamlike landscape, alive with light and serenity. The festival was a time to honor both gods and mortals. Children whispered wishes to the stars, lovers exchanged secret smiles, and elders shared stories of triumphs and tragedies. Each lantern represented hope, memory, or a promise, a small but luminous tribute to the threads of life that connected everyone. Leon told a story about the hero Bellerophon, who tamed Pegasus, the winged horse, reminding villagers that courage and perseverance could lift ordinary people to extraordinary heights. The children listened wide-eyed, imagining themselves riding above clouds, laughing with the gods, and returning to earth with hearts full of dreams. By the end of the night, the villagers felt a quiet unity, a sense of belonging that transcended time. They understood that celebrations were more than joy. They were reminders of life's fragility, beauty, and the importance of cherishing connections. Chapter 20. Echoes of the Mountains. In the early morning, mist rolled over the mountains surrounding Terpsichore, softening the jagged peaks and turning the landscape into a sea of gray and silver. Dorian had returned from his journey, bringing tales of distant villages, strange rituals, and people whose lives, though different, shared the same human essence. He climbed the mountains alone one morning, listening to the echoes bouncing between cliffs. Each sound reminded him of myths, the roar of the Cyclops, the whispers of Pan, or the distant voice of the winds carrying messages from Olympus. The mountains became a cathedral of memory and reflection, a place where mortal life and divine myth intertwined seamlessly. He met shepherds along the trails, sharing meals and stories, learning that courage, love, and laughter were universal languages. He saw how people honored nature, respected their elders, and nurtured their children, realizing that these small, deliberate acts formed the foundation of happiness and meaning. At sunset, Dorian descended, carrying not gold or jewels, but something more profound: understanding, empathy, and a connection that spanned not only the village, but the whole human experience. Chapter 20. The Song of the Sea. As summer faded, the villagers gathered once more by the sea. Fishermen sang as they repaired nets, children played among the rocks, and the waves carried a melody older than memory.
It was said that the sea remembered everything, triumphs, sorrows, and whispered secrets of mortals and gods alike. Ilara and Nikos walked along the shore, listening to the sea's song. It told tales of heroes lost and found, of love tested by storms, of divine interventions and human courage. They realized that the sea, like life itself, was a teacher, teaching patience, reflection, and acceptance. Callista, sitting nearby, wove small threads inspired by the rhythm of the waves, imagining stories yet to be told. Dorian joined, sharing the lessons he had learned from distant lands, the people he had met, and the wisdom that traveled with him. The villagers understood that every sound, every moment, every story was a note in the eternal song of life. To listen carefully was to understand, to act with kindness was to honor the melody, and to live fully was to join in its chorus. Under the twilight sky, the village felt at peace, cradled by myth, memory, and the gentle rhythm of the sea. And as sleep came, each heart carried the quiet certainty that life, like the stories of the gods, was rich, layered, and timeless. Chapter 21. The Festival of Shadows. As autumn leaves painted the hills in amber and gold, Terpsichore prepared for the Festival of Shadows. Unlike other festivals of light, this celebration honored the unseen, the quiet, the memories lingering in the corners of life. Villagers carried lanterns, each containing a small note recalling a loss, a triumph, or a lesson learned. Callista walked among the crowd, her tapestry tucked under her arm. She paused to listen to Leon, who narrated a tale of Hades and Persephone, not as gods apart from humans, but as reflections of love, separation, and reconciliation. Children shivered and laughed, understanding that even in darkness, warmth and guidance could be found. The festival reminded villagers of resilience. Shadows, literal and symbolic, existed in every life. Some were fears, some regrets, some grief, but all carried meaning. To face them was to grow, to embrace them was to find light within darkness. That night, stories intertwined with the glow of lanterns, painting a tapestry of human experience as vivid as any Callista had woven. The god's presence, subtle and protective, felt close to every heart, reminding all that even in the unseen, care and wisdom endure. Chapter 22. The Hermit on the Hill. High above the village, where the winds sang songs of the distant mountains, lived a hermit named Philemon. Though reclusive, he carried immense knowledge of herbs, stars, and old myths. Villagers sought him sparingly, for his words were potent, requiring patience and reflection. Dorian climbed the hill to meet him, eager to learn wisdom that transcended ordinary life. Philemon spoke of Icarus not merely as a cautionary tale, but as a reminder of ambition tempered with humility. He told stories of mortals who, like Dorian, sought adventure and understanding and learned that mistakes often became teachers. The hermit's small hut smelled of dried lavender and rosemary, while sunlight filtered through hand-carved wooden shutters. As the day waned, he encouraged Dorian to listen, not to instructions, but to life itself. Every sound of wind, bird, and distant waterfall was a lesson in patience, harmony, and observation. When Dorian descended the hill, he carried not guidance, but a sense of attunement to the world, a connection to life's rhythms, and the quiet knowledge that every journey begins within. Chapter 23. The Painter of Dreams. In a quiet corner of the village, an elderly painter named Lysandra worked tirelessly on a mural depicting Greek myths. Her brush moved with a rhythm that mimicked the ebb and flow of the sea. Each figure, heroes, gods, and mortals, was depicted with humanity and emotion, not mere divinity. Children and adults alike visited her studio, entranced by the colors and stories. Lysandra spoke of the myths as mirrors of human life, courage and folly, love and loss, joy and sorrow. A tiny girl holding her mother's hand asked if gods truly walked among humans. Lysandra smiled and replied, "Perhaps not always, but in our stories, our actions, and the way we care for each other, their spirit lives." The mural became a focal point of reflection and inspiration. It reminded villagers that art was more than decoration. It was a vessel for memory, emotion, and timeless lessons. Through colors and shapes, they learned empathy, creativity, and the importance of seeing the divine in everyday life. Chapter 25. The Harvest Moon. The first full moon of autumn bathed Terpsichore in silver light. The villagers gathered in the fields to celebrate the harvest, giving thanks for the earth's abundance. Baskets overflowed with olives, grapes, and figs, while laughter and song filled the crisp air. Elders recounted the myths behind each crop, how Demeter blessed the fields, how mortals learned patience and gratitude, how every season carried lessons for hearts willing to observe. Callista, Dorian, Ilara, and Nikos worked side by side, sharing stories, humor, and gentle guidance with children. That night, under the glowing harvest moon, villagers felt the intertwined nature of life, toil and reward, laughter and tears, love and reflection. Every harvest, every story, every song was a thread in a vast tapestry of human experience, timeless, enduring, and rich with meaning.
Chapter 26. The Wind Whisperers. Autumn winds swept through the hills of Terpsichore, carrying with them the secrets of faraway lands. The villagers often paused to feel the breeze, listening as if it carried messages from gods, heroes, or ancestors long past. Dorian, returning from yet another journey, spoke of mountains where wind spirits were believed to whisper wisdom to travelers. He shared stories of mortals who followed the breeze, finding lost paths, hidden valleys, and unexpected kindness from strangers. The villagers marveled, realizing that life often guided them subtly, like a soft wind shaping the contours of hills and hearts alike. Callista paused at her loom, weaving patterns inspired by the shifting wind, imagining how invisible forces guided both humans and gods. Even the fishermen noticed that the wind sometimes altered their sails, gently reminding them that control was often an illusion and adaptation was the true mastery. The winds carried laughter, sorrow, and reflection across the village that day. Every gust became a teacher, every breeze a guide, and every quiet pause a moment to listen. Through these whispers, the villagers learned patience, observation, and the art of living harmoniously with forces greater than themselves. Chapter 27. The Echo of Laughter. Even in the quietest moments, laughter held power. In a small courtyard, children played under the watchful eyes of elders. Their giggles mingled with the evening air, weaving invisible threads between generations. Leon often reminded the villagers that laughter was a bridge to the divine. Apollo, he said, blessed mortals with joy, not only to lighten hearts, but to teach resilience. To laugh is to honor life itself. Ilara recalled her own childhood, the warmth of her mother's embrace, the mischievous pranks of her siblings, and the comfort of laughter during difficult times. Nikos smiled at her memories, remembering similar moments by the sea. Callista's tapestries reflected this energy too.
Among scenes of battles, heroes, and gods, there were small depictions of joy: a child running with a puppy, neighbors sharing a meal, a couple's first kiss. The villagers understood that joy was intertwined with sorrow, love with loss, and that laughter could illuminate even the darkest corners. By nightfall, the echo of laughter lingered. It was a reminder that even as myths spoke of trials and heroism, life's beauty existed in moments of connection, levity, and shared human experience. Chapter 28: The Lost Grove. One morning, Dorian discovered a forgotten grove hidden behind thick cypress trees. Its entrance was nearly invisible, cloaked in moss and shadows. As he stepped inside, he felt a profound calm, as if the grove had existed outside of time. In the center, an ancient fountain trickled water that shimmered like moonlight. Nymphs were said to guard it, ensuring that those who entered were worthy of the wisdom it offered. Dorian knelt and drank cautiously, feeling an energy ripple through him: clarity, courage, and empathy intertwined with quiet awe. He returned to the village, carrying tales of the grove's beauty, its hidden lessons, and the transformative power of solitude and reflection. The villagers were inspired, realizing that the world often hid treasures in places overlooked, and that discovery required patience, respect, and attentiveness. The lost grove became a symbol of introspection. It reminded everyone that myths were not only stories, but living guides, offering insight into human hearts, nature, and the subtle presence of divinity in ordinary life. Chapter 30: The Weaver and the Stars. Callista often worked late into the night, her loom illuminated by lanterns. On one such night, she paused to gaze at the sky. Stars glittered like scattered gems, each holding stories of gods, heroes, and mortals whose deeds had echoed across time. Inspired, she began weaving a new tapestry, a night sky interwoven with constellations, myths, and mortal lives. Orion's hunt, Cassiopeia's pride, and the tragic love of Andromeda were delicately entwined with scenes of her village: children playing, lovers embracing, elders telling stories by the fire. The villagers marveled, seeing themselves reflected among gods and heroes, understanding that myth and reality were inseparable threads in the tapestry of life. Chapter 30: The Calm of the Moonlit Sea. By late autumn, the sea had grown quiet, reflecting the silver glow of the full moon. The village gathered on the shore one final time before winter's chill, listening to the gentle waves and sharing reflections on the year past. Nikos repaired his nets by the fire, Ilara hummed softly, and Callista's fingers traced threads on her tapestry inspired by the sea's rhythm. Dorian spoke of distant lands, lessons learned, and the universality of human experience. The villagers realized that life's trials, joys, and stories were like the waves, ever-moving, powerful, and eternal. The moonlight embraced every face, every laugh, every tear. It illuminated the simplicity and profundity of their existence, the intertwining of myth, human emotion, and daily life. Even the gods seemed to watch silently, approving of their balance, kindness, and awareness. As the night deepened, sleep came gently. Hearts were calm, minds reflective, and souls ready to dream. The village, cradled by the myths and melodies of life, understood that even ordinary moments held divine beauty, and that every story, whether ancient or lived today, was a gift to cherish forever.
Chapter 31: The Village Altar. In the quiet of early morning, the villagers gathered around the small stone altar at the heart of Terpsichore. Its surface, worn smooth by centuries of devotion, carried offerings of bread, olives, and herbs. The altar was a sacred point where mortals and gods met in silent conversation. Callista placed a small woven tapestry upon it, depicting a nymph blessing the village. The elders recited prayers, not for grand miracles, but for guidance, health, and harmony. Even children whispered their hopes, learning that devotion was less about ritual and more about mindfulness, gratitude, and reverence for life. Leon spoke softly about the stories connected to each offering. He recounted tales of mortals who had been rewarded for simple acts of honesty, bravery, or generosity. The villagers realized that the altar was more than a stone. It was a teacher, reminding them that everyday life carried sacred meaning and that every choice could honor the divine. By noon, the altar radiated quiet warmth. The villagers departed with hearts lightened, minds reflective, and a subtle understanding that life's magic was present not only in myths, but in ordinary actions, shared laughter, and acts of kindness. Chapter 32, The Harvest of Stories. Winter approached again, bringing long nights and crisp air. The villagers gathered to share the harvest of stories collected throughout the year. Each tale, whether drawn from adventure, sorrow, or humor, became a gift passed along generations. Dorian recounted his travels beyond the mountains, weaving myths with his real-life encounters. The children listened wide-eyed, imagining sea monsters, benevolent nymphs, and hidden valleys untouched by time. Elders nodded knowingly, seeing the truths of human nature reflected in each story. Callista's tapestries illustrated the tales, capturing emotions and lessons in thread and color. The villagers realized that stories were more than entertainment. They were vessels of memory, empathy, and wisdom. Through them, the past and present converged, teaching that life's richness was found not in wealth or fame, but in shared experience, reflection, and love. By evening, the village square hummed with a quiet glow. Every story told became a reminder that even the smallest deeds, the softest words, or the simplest moments carried eternal significance, connecting humans across time and space. Chapter 34, The Lanterns on the Lake. One clear night, the villagers lit lanterns and released them onto the small lake near the village. The floating lights drifted gently, reflecting stars and the crescent moon in their golden glow. Children ran along the shore, marveling at the reflections. Lovers whispered wishes for the future, while elders reflected on lessons learned. Each lantern symbolized hope, memory, or a promise, carrying human intention into the night sky. Leon strummed his lyre, softly playing melodies that mirrored the lantern's gentle dance. Callista wove small threads inspired by the glowing lights, imagining stories of the gods and mortals intertwined in radiant patterns. The villagers learned that beauty was often fleeting, fragile, yet powerful. Even in darkness, their intentions, stories, and love created lasting light, illuminating paths not only for themselves, but for generations yet to come. The lake became a mirror of life itself, reflective, ever-changing, and luminous with potential. Chapter 34, The Shepherd's Song. High in the hills, shepherds guided their flocks, singing soft melodies that carried across valleys. The songs told stories of Pan, the playful god of the wild, and of mortals who learned humility, courage, and patience. Dorian climbed to meet a young shepherd who sang of a hero lost at sea, but remembered through love and memory. The melody wove together mythology, human experience, and the beauty of simplicity. Every note taught empathy, resilience, and reflection. Callista and Ilara joined the shepherds for a time, inspired by the harmony between humans and nature. They understood that life's lessons were not only in grand adventures or heroic acts, but in quiet labor, kindness, and the songs shared beneath open skies. By sunset, the valley hummed with connection. Humans, gods, and nature intertwined, revealing the subtle magic of ordinary life. The shepherd's songs lingered in hearts, a reminder that wisdom and joy often reside in the simplest melodies. Chapter 35, The Winter Solstice. The first snow dusted the hills, turning Terpsichore into a silent wonderland. Villagers gathered around fires, sharing warmth, stories, and reflections. Winter's arrival marked a pause, a time to look back, to honor the past, and to prepare for the coming cycle of seasons. Callista's tapestries depicted the solstice, the balance of light and darkness, mortality and divinity, love and sorrow. Dorian spoke of distant lands where winter brought reflection and unity, mirroring the villagers' own experiences. Elders recounted myths of Demeter and Persephone, illustrating the eternal rhythms of life, death, and renewal. Children listened wide-eyed, learning that life was a series of cycles. Laughter, tears, courage, and love were all part of the journey, and each experience carried lessons that shaped hearts and minds. The gods, though unseen, were honored in these quiet moments of reflection, blessing the villagers' patience, devotion, and understanding. As night fell, the village slept peacefully under blankets of snow. The heart of Greece pulsed gently in every home, cradling the stories, emotions, and lessons that had grown across decades and generations. Sleep arrived as a gentle teacher, carrying dreams woven from myth, life, and the quiet magic of everyday existence.
Chapter 36. The Hidden Library. In the hills above Terpsichore, hidden behind thick ivy, lay a small stone building, the village's secret library. Its shelves carried scrolls, clay tablets, and books filled with stories of gods, heroes, and mortals. Few villagers knew of it, and those who did treated it with reverence. Dorian discovered the library during one of his wanderings. He marveled at the collection, tales of Odysseus's journeys, the cleverness of Athena, and the bravery of Bellerophon. Each story carried wisdom beyond entertainment, offering lessons on courage, patience, and compassion. Callista and Leon joined him, and together they read aloud. The words danced through the air like fireflies, illuminating minds and hearts. Children peeked through windows, captivated by the rhythm of history and myth, learning that knowledge was a bridge connecting the past to the present. The hidden library became a sanctuary, a place to reflect, learn, and understand the subtle ways myths intertwined with human life. It reminded villagers that wisdom often lay in quiet, hidden corners, waiting for those willing to seek it. Chapter 37. The Weaver's Moon. Callista often worked late into the night under the silver glow of the moon. On this night, she decided to weave a tapestry that captured the essence of the lunar cycle, inspired by myths of Selene, the goddess of the moon, and her lover, Endymion. As threads intertwined, the villagers noticed subtle shifts in their dreams. Children imagined riding moonbeams, elders reflected on life's patterns, and lovers found courage to express their hearts. Callista realized that weaving was more than craft. It was a way to touch souls, impart lessons, and inspire reflection. Through the tapestry, she conveyed that life moved in cycles: joy and sorrow, activity and rest, ambition and humility. The moon, both observer and participant, illuminated paths, reminding all that guidance often comes in quiet, gentle light rather than grand gestures. By dawn, the tapestry was complete, and the villagers felt a subtle serenity. Callista understood that her work was a bridge between myth and everyday life, teaching beauty, wisdom, and reflection could be found even in the simplest moments. Chapter 38. The Song of the Hearth. Winter deepened, and villagers spent evenings near hearth fires, sharing stories, songs, and warmth. The firelight danced on faces, illuminating laughter, tears, and the soft glow of reflection. Leon brought his lyre,
playing melodies that mirrored the flames. The music intertwined with tales of mortals learning courage, gods showing mercy, and ordinary acts of kindness shaping destinies. Each note carried lessons in empathy, patience, and gratitude. Children watched spellbound, understanding that stories were living things, teaching without coercion. Elders nodded, reflecting on the continuity of life, the patterns that repeated, and the lessons passed from generation to generation. Even Callista paused her weaving, inspired by the harmony of fire, song, and storytelling. The hearth became a sacred space, a teacher of values, love, and wisdom, reminding villagers that home, community, and shared experience were as magical as any myth. Chapter 40. The River's Reflection. By summer, the river near Terpsichore ran full and gentle, reflecting the sky like a silver mirror. Villagers gathered along its banks, reflecting on the lessons of the past year, the myths they had embraced, and the wisdom they had shared. Dorian, Callista, and Ilara stood together, listening to the river's song. It carried stories from distant lands, echoes of the past, and gentle guidance for the future. Children skipped stones, creating ripples that shimmered like fleeting moments of joy and discovery. The villagers realized that life, much like the river, was ever flowing. It carried both triumphs and failures, love and sorrow, laughter and reflection. To observe and respect its flow was to understand life itself. As the sun set, painting the river in hues of amber and rose, the village felt a quiet harmony. Myths, memories, and lessons blended seamlessly with reality, ensuring that each heart carried wisdom, serenity, and connection into the coming days.
Chapter 41. The Silent Grove. In the quiet of early dawn, the villagers visited the Silent Grove, a place where the wind rarely stirred and even birds seemed hushed. The grove was ancient, home to stories older than the village itself. Legends whispered that the nymphs lingered here, blessing those who walked in reflection. Callista often brought her tapestry here, seeking inspiration in the stillness. She would trace threads along patterns inspired by the rustling of leaves and the subtle hum of the earth. Dorian walked alongside her, recounting tales of mortals who had discovered wisdom in silence, learning patience, humility, and awareness. The villagers understood that silence was not emptiness, it was a vessel for thought, memory, and connection. In this grove, they contemplated actions, words, and choices, realizing that reflection often revealed truths invisible amid noise and distraction. By sunset, the grove glimmered faintly with dewdrops and twilight. Each villager left with a heart lighter, a mind calmer, and an understanding that life's quiet moments carried lessons as profound as any story or song. Chapter 42. The Tale of the Starry Horse. One night, a traveling minstrel visited Terpsichore, bringing stories of Pegasus, the winged horse, and Bellerophon, the mortal who dared to ride him. Children sat in rapt attention, while elders nodded, recognizing the metaphor of courage tempered with humility. Dorian explained that Pegasus symbolized freedom, inspiration, and the ability to transcend limitations, but only through respect, wisdom, and patience. Callista sketched the scene in her tapestry, capturing the horse mid-flight, wings spread wide against the night sky. The story reminded villagers that ambition without awareness could lead to downfall, but when paired with knowledge and kindness, it became a source of wonder and achievement. Even the youngest children understood that dreams, courage, and morality were intertwined, guiding each choice they made. By morning, the image of the starry horse remained in every mind, a symbol of hope,
reflection, and the power of combining action with wisdom. Chapter 43. The Festival of Echoes. In the deep of winter, the village celebrated the Festival of Echoes, honoring voices past and present. Villagers spoke aloud stories of their ancestors, repeating myths and memories that had shaped their culture. Leon played his lyre, weaving melodies that carried words across the snow-dusted hills. Each echo reminded villagers of continuity, resilience, and the importance of memory. Children listened intently, learning that their actions today would resonate into the future, just as past deeds had shaped their present. Dorian reflected on his travels, seeing connections between distant lands and Terpsichore. The festival reinforced the understanding that while humans are mortal, stories, lessons, and love carry forward, echoing across generations like ripples on water. As night fell, the villagers felt bound together, not by necessity, but by shared memory, empathy, and a deep reverence for life's intertwined stories. The echoes became a bridge between past, present, and future, teaching them that each voice mattered. Chapter 44. The Whispering Winds. Spring returned, and with it came the gentle whispering winds that threaded through olive groves and hills. Dorian climbed a small ridge to listen, hearing what seemed like messages from gods, ancestors, and the earth itself. Callista and Alara joined him, and together they interpreted the subtle sounds, the sway of branches, the rustle of grass, and the call of distant birds. Each whisper spoke of balance, patience, and the interconnectedness of all life. The villagers realized that wisdom often arrived subtly, not in loud proclamations, but in quiet observation. They learned to respect nature's rhythms, to listen before acting, and to understand that guidance often came in gentle nudges, not forceful commands. By dusk, the village was alive with reflection and gratitude. Every breath of wind carried insight, every shadow suggested contemplation, and every shared smile embodied harmony with the world and its unseen forces. Chapter 45. The Moonlit Bridge. On the edge of Terpsichore, a small stone bridge arched over a tranquil river. On moonlit nights, its reflection created the illusion of a path to the stars. Villagers often walked here to meditate, dream, or contemplate life's mysteries. One night, Dorian and Callista stood together on the bridge, observing ripples that reflected both the moon and the lanterns of the village. They spoke of the lessons they had learned: courage, patience, kindness, and the wisdom carried in stories of gods and mortals. Children ran across the bridge laughing, while elders observed quietly, feeling the weight of generations and the continuity of life. The bridge symbolized connection between past and present, myth and reality, individual hearts and the community. As they departed, the moonlight lingered on the water, a gentle reminder that life's journey was continuous, full of reflection, wonder, and opportunity. Every step taken with awareness became a path illuminated by stories, love, and timeless lessons.
Chapter 46. The Garden of Memories. Near the village edge lay the Garden of Memories, where every flower, tree, and stone carried the imprint of past events. Villagers often visited to reflect on personal lessons, lost loved ones, or meaningful moments. Callista wandered among the blooms, tracing petals with her fingers and sketching their shapes in her tapestry. Dorian followed, recounting the myths that inspired each flower: the narcissus of self-reflection, the rose of enduring love, and the olive of peace and wisdom.
Children ran lightly through the garden, imagining nymphs hiding in the trees, while elders paused to contemplate how their own actions shaped future generations. Each visitor understood that memory was alive. It could teach, comfort, or inspire, but only if honored and reflected upon. By nightfall, the garden glowed softly under lanterns. The villagers left with a renewed understanding that remembering, honoring, and learning from life's moments ensured growth, wisdom, and a deeper connection to both myth and reality. Chapter 47. The Festival of Light and Shadow. The village celebrated a festival that honored both light and shadow, joy and sorrow, victories and failures. Lanterns floated above the square, and shadows danced across stone walls, reminding villagers that balance was central to life. Leon's lyre echoed through the streets, blending melodies of triumph with somber undertones. Dorian shared stories of heroes who faced despair yet discovered courage. Callista displayed tapestries that depicted gods and mortals navigating the duality of life. Children learned that fear and hope coexist, that mistakes teach as much as success, and that laughter is often sweeter after tears. Elders smiled, recognizing the cyclical nature of human existence, where challenges in joy, ambition, and humility interwove into a harmonious whole. By the festival's end, villagers felt gratitude for the lessons embedded in every moment, understanding that life's shadows made light more meaningful, and that balance was the quiet wisdom of the gods themselves. Chapter 48. The Keeper of Stories. In a small cottage by the river lived an elderly storyteller known as the Keeper of Stories. He preserved tales from far-off lands, myths, and local legends, ensuring that every moral, every joy, and every sorrow reached future generations. Dorian, Callista, and the children gathered by the fire as the keeper recounted a tale of a mortal who befriended gods, learning that trust, humility, and courage shaped destiny more than gold or fame. The children listened intently, wide-eyed, absorbing lessons hidden in adventure and myth. Through his stories, the keeper reminded them that life was not only a series of events, but a tapestry of connections, choices, and reflections. Each action, small or grand, resonated through time, leaving echoes in hearts and communities. When the night ended, the villagers departed quietly, holding wisdom close. They understood that stories were living guides, teaching patience, empathy, and courage in every season, every challenge, and every joy. Chapter 49. The Moonlit Labyrinth. Deep in the hills, an ancient labyrinth lay under the silver glow of the moon. Legends said it tested the heart and mind, revealing truths about courage, love, and self-understanding. Dorian and Callista ventured carefully, observing twists and turns that mirrored challenges of life. Each choice reflected patience, wisdom, and awareness. Shadows whispered lessons, and statues of gods reminded them of humility, compassion, and justice. Children followed at a distance, imagining themselves as heroes in the making. They learned that paths in life were rarely straight, decisions carried consequences, but heart and reflection guided the journey. Emerging at the labyrinth's center, the travelers felt serenity. The moon illuminated the path they had walked, reminding villagers that life's journey is both intricate and beautiful, and that lessons gained through experience are treasures beyond measure. Chapter 50. The Eternal Tapestry. The village gathered one last time under a star-strewn sky. Callista unveiled her final tapestry, weaving together every story, myth, and lesson from the year. Gods, mortals, seasons, laughter, tears, courage, and love were intertwined in brilliant color and intricate patterns. Dorian spoke softly of journeys, discoveries, and reflection. Children understood the importance of curiosity, patience, and empathy. Elders saw the culmination of a year's wisdom, feeling the heartbeat of the village, the stories of gods, and the lessons of life stitched seamlessly together. As the night deepened, the village felt unity and harmony. Each person carried memories, stories, and understanding into the future. The eternal tapestry symbolized continuity, the interconnection of lives, and the timeless nature of myth and human experience. Sleep came gently that night. Hearts were calm, minds reflective, and dreams carried the weight of adventure, wisdom, and wonder. Terpsichore rested under moonlight, cradled by the myths, memories, and lessons that had grown through 50 chapters of life, love, laughter, and reflection.